Nobody's going to shed a tear for Ofwat, which is being abolished, because they were responsible for this decision, putting our bills up by 36%, as you say, in the next 5 years. Also, Ofwat doubled the amount that's going to shareholders and banks in the next 5 years, from 11 billion to 22 billion in profit. And Ofwat...
But would they not have argued that they would have to do that in order to, maintain the status quo, which, people would argue is far too low? But in terms of putting those bills up, if they didn't, the water companies essentially would collapse. Did they have much of a choice, Ofwat, really?
Some water companies are going to collapse anyway, even with these enormous bill rises, particularly Thames Water. And the other thing that Ofwat and the government are not doing is putting failed companies like Thames Water, which are pretty much insolvent, got the worst pollution records, into what's called special administration. That's just making them lose their licences so that these companies can transition into a different ownership structure. That's one of the things that the government could do right now if it wanted. Just like Railtrack failed and it got transferred to the publicly owned Network Rail, we could do the same with our water companies.
But public ownership, essentially, again, it's the consumer, it's the customer that is going to pay for those companies' mistakes. I noticed that Reform's Nigel Farage said the other day that Labour should let failing water companies go bust. They deserve to lose their money, not get a bailout. Because while the public do support water companies being taken back into public ownership, essentially they're just going to be punished again. You're paying for those mistakes. So do you think Nigel Farage has a bit of a point there? What would happen if the Labour government were to just let those water companies go bust?
What would happen is that the government would take control. It would replace the board of directors, and like Railtrack...
The shareholders wouldn't get any money, though, would it? It wouldn't get any public money, which I guess is Nigel Farage's point. You would be paying for it twice.
If the companies go bust, the shareholders definitely wouldn't and shouldn't get any money. The big question is banks, but under the law, they don't need to be given an extra bailout. I mean, actually, it's not just Nigel Farage, but Keir Starmer in 2020, when he ran for Labour leader, said that there should be common ownership of water, amongst other things. And that's a pledge which has sort of gone away because the Treasury is saying it would just cost too much to have public ownership. But really, if people want to look at the People's Commission report that just came out recently as well, we reviewed water ownership models around the world. We looked at how the law works. And actually, public ownership of a failed water company like Thames Water would cost close to zero for the taxpayer. But as I say, save £22 billion in privatisation costs over the next 5 years if we did it with Thames and also all the other failing water companies in England.
OK.